What's the dumbest thing you actually believed? Here's the list so far. Since I firmly believed from ages 3 to 8 that every single night little elves would march around my bed until morning and that if I dangled my foot off the bed they would eat my toes. Since my mum told me that midnight was the witching hour, so if I didn't go to sleep by then I would get kidnapped by witches. Since my mum also told me that if I didn't clean my room snakes would raid my room because they were attracted to the mess. Since I also thought that a witch stood behind my bed each night and if any bit of hair strayed from my pillow she would take a piece for her spells. As you can imagine, I didn't sleep very well as a child. The WD-40 meant windows down, 40 miles per hour. Someone told me that in middle school as a joke and I took it literally until I was a senior. I was once told that British TV presenter Jeremy Beadle's hand had such small fingers because of a condition, Poland syndrome, that meant he had to have his fingers replaced and that his fingers were, in fact, pig's toes. For years, this was a piece of obscure general knowledge that I would break out when I felt the need to display the breadth of my weird knowledge. And it went down really well until the day someone finally said, "Don't pigs have hooves?" I don't know that I have ever experienced such a moment of butt-clenchingly cringy embarrassment. Edit. I can't believe my confession of dumbassery got me a gold. That being named Johnny was a sin. Pharaoh as a part of the song The Devil Went Down to Georgia that goes me name's Johnny and it might be a sin, but I'll take your Berto who instantly associated the name with being a sin, not making bets with the devil. This made me think kids named Johnny were sons of devil worshippers. I was a very dumb kid. I grew up in a Jewish household but was aware of the whole Christmas thing. It was my understanding that Santa would go around bringing gifts to kids if they left out a plate of cookies and some milk for him. Seemed easy enough. It was the night before Christmas and I left the perfect food arrangement out for Santa, thinking in spite of my religious beliefs he might leave me a gift in exchange for the snacks. When I woke the next morning, the cookies and milk were gone, but no present was left. I was furious. How dare this jolly fat man come into my hole, steal my food, and not leave anything in return. I spent years complaining about it, and would curse the man's name if I saw him. Of course years later my dad admitted that he had eaten everything. Thanks Dad. That mini giraffes, also known as pygmy or dwarf giraffes, were a real creature and you could be placed on a waiting list to receive one. This was probably my first foray into having my identity stolen as a teenager. My father and I used to mess with my sister as she was growing up. When she saw an orange tree for the first time, the oranges were unripe and very green. We then told her that all of the citrus fruits came from the same tree, and depending on when you picked them, that was the fruit you got. They started as limes, then ripened into lemons, which would grow into oranges, and then if left too long would grow into grapefruits. She graduated with honors from a major state university this year. We found out that she still believed this during our family trip to Mexico last spring, 2019, when we had to break the news to her. I used to be so confused about the amount of time it would take to make movies, because I was convinced they did it all in chronological order, and when they did flashbacks to childhood, I was like wow those actors are so ormid or I would think it must take a long time for their hair to grow or change in any way, and never considered it could be a wig lol. Edit. Yes, I have heard of the movie Boyhood. It came out when I was 22, so well past my perception of movies being made that way, but it definitely reminded me of this when I first heard of it, and I thought it was really cool that someone actually did that. I'm from a Muslim country. There are mosques everywhere, so we always hear azan call to prayer. I used to believe that Allah, God, was reciting the azan. So I was like, I can't understand how we can't know what God is like, what he looks like, and that we can only meet him in the afterlife. Just trap him down when he leaves the mosque after he finished reciting the azan. Someone convinced me for like 5 seconds that unicorns were real. They just lost their horns through evolution and now they are plain old horses. I was convinced that Greeks still worshipped Zeus and other gods for a while after I heard the word Greek Orthodox Church as a kid. I thought that teachers lived at school. As a kid, I thought that the world wars were like battle royales, where there were no alliances, no surrenders, and just pure bloody violence between every country on earth. For instance, I thought every country fought all of its neighbors simultaneously. I thought Churchill was an architect, because when I was little my mum told me he was one of the architects of Israel. I used to think that people exclusively wore hats if they were bald, because that's why my dad wore a hat. When I was little, I genuinely believed the Teletubbies were evil and that, if I didn't watch them on TV every night, even though I hated the show, that they would come and get me. To be fair though, they're kind of creepy. That dark meat and white meat come from two different birds. I was 12 when they asked me, as they did each year at Thanksgiving, which kind of meat I wanted. That year, I said, dark meat, please. But I feel bad I'm the only one who really eats it, and you always have to get an entire second turkey just for me. I'm still teased about it to this day, at 46 years old. That reindeer wasn't an actual animal, but specifically a mythical animal that Santa Claus used. I believed this until I was 23 or so, when I saw some nature documentary talking about reindeer. I was like, wow it. When I was 6 I watched a movie, King Kong, and a scene with a bunch of black folks emerging from the mud appeared, and I got a bit spooked by it. A bit later, I was at McDonald's with my parents and I saw a black family walk in. Thank God my parents are deaf, or I would have asked, out loud, why are the mud people here? Mum thought I was racist, but I was just a bit inexperienced lol. When I was a kid I used to think professional wrestling was real, and The Undertaker scared the living shit out of me during his whole Ministry of Darkness phase. I thought he actually was Satan's minister or something. Like yeah, he's an undead overlord of hell, here to bring an eternity of darkness and misery to this planet, but he also has to make a weekly television appearance to win a wrestling competition, and you can buy his action figure at Toys R Us. When we played Pokémon Mystery Dungeon my little sister used to accept the lamest missions and not get good rewards. I told her about it, and she responded with, how would you like it if you were a poor Pokémon that lost its mom and was stuck all alone and had nothing to give someone to save you? I laughed my head off at her because Arita's not real. But secretly, I feel that in my soul sometimes. I believed my Uncle Zora or Marto who just slept on the couch. I used to think they dropped the ball at Times Square multiple times for each user time zone. I just assumed people stuck around for the extra ball drops cause they were all drunk and having fun. Hilarious edit, worth mentioning that I believed this until I was an adult and had my East Coast wife let me down easy. Another edit, thanks for my very first award, seems a fitting one for this post. As a kid, my sister told me that we had an older brother that died. She said he died when playing bowling, and his fingers didn't come out the ball, and slid all the way down the alley then he turned into a skittle. One of my favorite songs growing up was TLC's Don't Go, Jason Waterfalls. My dog went to a farm, until I was 35. When I was a kid I thought Drive, Phil and Steve Harvey were the same person. Wow, this is the most upvotes I have ever gotten, and my first award, thank you. I thought guys got periods too, but only once, and you bled, and then you were able to impregnate someone. I cut my upper leg during a rugby match, and was bleeding near my groin, and was devastated, because I thought everyone would presume I had my period mid-match, and also subsequently would be walking around able to impregnate people. Worst thing is, I wasn't even a stupid kid. We literally just lived in a reserved country, and I was a full-time boarder at my school, so never got the talk. Anyway, thanks for attending my bled talk. More so naive and innocent rather than dumb, but still funny. My dad used to tell us kids that a dwarf / little person worked in and operated every car park barrier in the world. Every time he drove up to one, he'd press the button for the ticket and say, "Cheers mate, how's the wife?" and fake a conversation as he waited for the barrier to open. Lol. That sperm were the size of tennis balls and would burst forth from the head of your penis if you slept with a woman, slither across the bed up into her, and make the baby. Thanks. Facts of Life pop-up book with no adults willing to clarify that the objects within were not always to scale. I thought that girls peed from their butts. Then I learned about vaginas and thought girls peed from there. It wasn't until I was like 16 that I realized there was another hole. Until I was way too old, I didn't know vaginas existed. I thought women just had blank space there and all births were C-sections. That men can get pregnant too. Damn you Schwarzenegger. I was 6 and I saw a man with a big beer belly shopping for diapers at a mall. It made all sense to me and I was so happy I screamed, "OMG, you will have a baby." I think I'm gonna go rewatch Junior again. If you ignore bullies, they will leave you alone. When I was a little kid, I believed that when people got divorced, they had a divorce ceremony, like where they had to go to church and say, "I don't," and I imagined the woman wore a black divorce dress, like her wedding dress had been dyed black, and that everybody went to the reception, where the ex-bride and ex-groom sat on opposite sides of the hall, and there was a divorce cake where the little bride and groom on top had their backs to each other with their arms angrily crossed. I eventually learned from watching my mom's soap operas that this was not the case and was kind of disappointed cause I'd been to a few weddings by then and was interested in what a divorce ceremony was like.